Hello and welcome to what is going to be one of the last versions of our password manager app. Thank you so much for following me through this programming journey as we have kind of taken this little by little, and hopefully you felt a real sense of accomplishment by coming back to this every day or maybe every other day or something like that, and regularly coming back and just working on a little bit of the program and just finding some joy in solving a little bit and working towards a bigger goal without trying to solve everything at once. And that's what we've been doing. We've been taking things little by little, and now it's time to take what we've got and make it look good, right? Because at the moment, we've got an app that is just in the console. So when I run this now, we can see here that we just have it in the console, but obviously this isn't how normal applications actually work. We don't have these words appear on the screen and we can just like type into console. Normally there's buttons and menus and an actual nice kind of text box to type into. And so we're going to look at how we can include that in our project today. Now I'm just going to consult my to-do list first. So, oh dear, I seem to have I've walked the page. Okay, there we go. So first thing we need to do, increment the version, very important. So we are coming up to the end of week 2. So we're at 1.5. We've had, I think, 9 days. Yeah, this is the 9th version. So we've had 9 days now. Don't ask me about the version. Next application we build, the versioning will be much cleverer. Okay. Yesterday we tried to do this. We tried to copy password to the user's clipboard. If you were working at home on like your own version of Python or something, then it might have worked for you, it might have been successful. Because I'm using repl.it, it's not actually possible to do this. So that's a nice idea. And I showed you how to do it if you are working in like PyCharm or Idle or something at home. But using repl.it, because it's on the cloud, it's just not possible. So that's going to go. We have tested our app. We've got no more duplicate usernames. We've got a kind of streamlined thing going on. So the last thing for us to do is put in a user interface. And this is the exciting bit, right? This is like everything coming together. You know, we've baked the cake and we've got the sponges and we've like put jam between them. And now we're going to like ice them and actually make them look edible, look appealing to eat. We're not going to eat this though. Please don't eat your application. But we're going to work on this user interface today and hopefully get something that's pretty good. Now, all of this stuff that we've done so far, I'm very experienced in. And so it's just come to me. It's just been fine. I've not had to look much up. I have had to go off and look at a few things, but I've not had to look much up. With user interfaces, it's a bit difficult, and so the pace is going to be a little bit slower today, but I think you might appreciate that because it is a little bit different in how we're going to do this. If you've used user interfaces before I should be saying graphical user interfaces rather than user interface, because we've got a user interface, it's just a command line, but a graphical user interface. If you've used it before and you're aware of like the object-oriented stance of programming it, then I'm sorry that we're not using that today and we're just going to be keeping it quite simple. But let's get stuck in. Let's do this. So we're going to keep this separate from the main program until we are happy with it, and then we're going to link them together. Okay. So I'm going to add a file and I'm going to call it interface.py. Okay, and this is where we're going to put all of our code for our interface. And now what I'm going to do is I'm only going to be wanting to test our interface while we're programming this today. So I'm going to make sure that when I press run, I'm not running the main program. I'm just running interface.py. Okay, and so we're going to be running this. Okay, so I should be able to click run now, and it just says Python 3 interface.py, and then does nothing because we've not given it any code, which is fab. So now we are going to import the most important thing for this. So we're going to say import tkinter, tkinter. I don't know why it's called that, but it is. And we're also going to alias it. So we're going to import it as tk. Essentially, it's just going to bring down the amount of typing we have to do and the length of our lines by having it a nice short name like that. Okay. Oh, not as tkinter, as tk. Okay, lovely. Now repl.it will install this library for us and it will just work. Okay, I've tested it. unlike the copy to clipboard thing where it just didn't work, but this will work and it will be fine. And we will get a little output actually up here. You can see that when we press run in a second, you will see a kind of box appear here and your output will come. Now, let's just get a very basic window up and running. So we're going to create a variable called window, and we're going to set it equal to tk dot, and then I believe it's tk with a capital T. And that's gone. Let's try that again. Okay, tk.tk. That's fine. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say window.main loop. And what main loop does is it runs the window constantly, and then once you like press exit or you click a button or something, it will then do whatever you tell the button or the exit to do. So if we press run now, we should have a window. Fantastic. Look at this. So we've got a little window here that we can move around in this space. It's a little bit, it's a little bit glitchy because we're running it in online. But we've got ourselves a little window. We can even resize it. We can minimize. Oh no, I didn't want to Okay, I don't know where that's gone. I don't know where that's gone. Don't minimize it. But if I run it again, there we go. And I can press maximize and it will fill the screen. And I can bring it back down again. So we've got ourselves a window. Now I should be able to type in, I think, class name equals, and I should be able to change what it says up here as the title. So I'm going to give it the class name of password manager, and I think that should, nope, doesn't like that. Let me just jump into my test file here where I've got a load of test code that I tried. What did I call it in here? Class name equals, and then, yeah, why isn't it working in mine then? Class name equals, oh, I put it in the wrong place. Idiot. Okay. Not an idiot, just we all make mistakes. It's okay. Okay, so we're going to move it there to tk.tk, and we're going to say the class name is password manager. So now I'm going to run this, and we can see here that the window is a little bit small, but we've got password manager. So we've got a name for our window here. Okay, fantastic. So there are a few different ways that we can work with these windows in Python, and we are going to be working with things called frames. Now, all of my information I have got from this website here, from geeksforgeeks.com or .org even, and it goes through loads of different stuff about Tkinter. Now, I'm not going to be referring to this too much because I have memorized as much as hopefully I'll need to, and I've got a load of backup code stored here in case we need to refer to it. But a link is in the description of the video, and you can go there and you can have a look at it if you did want to do a bit of research and find out some other things you can do in Tkinter. Okay, so let's try and add some things into here, right? So we can add in a button. Now, let's think about the first thing that our users greeted with when they start our app. Yeah? So they are started with the main menu, and they can log in, they can create an account, or they can exit. And so we need to kind of mimic that, right? So we're going to have 3 buttons, and they can click to log in, they can click one to create account, and they can click one to exit. So let's add in these buttons. So I'm going to say login button is equal to tk.button. And that will create me a new button. Easy as that. And if I just check the usage here in Geeks for Geeks, we say button, and let's have a look here. We give it the window, we give it a text, we can give it a width. I'm just going to copy all of this and pop it in here. Like, programming is 50%, maybe that's a bit generous, but 50% knowing what to type and 50% knowing what to Google, right? And so with those two things, you can never get unstuck. So the text for this is going to be login. Sorry, I've just dumped all of this in. So we're going to have login as our text for our button. Now this first thing here, this R, we're going to get rid of R, but we're going to type instead. We're going to tell our login button what it belongs to. So what it's going to go inside, and we want it to go inside of our window. So we want to create this button, and we want it to have a link to this window so that it knows that it needs to be in that window. Okay. Now actually, we can change that later. We'll put window for now. That will change. It will have a new parent. So this is its parent. And we're going to change parents. Okay, we can give it a width. I'm going to maybe just make it 10 for now. Okay, and we can also give it a command. So r.destroy, we don't want r, we want window, because that's our window. Okay, window.destroy will just close the window down. Okay, it will just exit the application. Obviously, we don't want that to happen when we press login, but we will just leave it there to make sure that our button is working. Okay, then what we're going to say is we are going to say login button dot grid. Let me get rid of these files here so we can see everything nice and clearly. Let's just move this over a little bit more. Okay, fantastic. And here, this is where we tell our button where it's going to go in our window. Now, there are a few different ways that we can like position things. There are a few different systems that Takinta offers. We are going to use the grid method, but there's also a pack method, and there's like I think there's like an absolute one where you tell it how many pixels you want it to be kind of left and down, and it will be there. But we're going to use grid. So we are going to give it a row. So we're going to say our row equals, and we're going to say our column equals, and we're going to give them a specific row and a specific column. So we can think about our window as being chopped up into as many rows and as many columns as we like, and it's only going to use the rows and columns that we specify. So we want this to be in the very first row. We're going to have a button per row, right? So we'll do row 0 because we're programmers. We start, the first thing is always 0. And we're going to put it in column, let's say 1, right? So we kind of have it centered, maybe. I don't know if it will be centered, but let's see. So we should have a button now. And by saying .grid, this will actually put it into our window. So we should be able to run this now. And we should see a button called login appear in our window. Hooray! Now, our window automatically sizes itself to fit everything that we've put inside it, right? So it is now just the size of our login button. So we've made an application that is just a button, and when we press that button, the window just goes away. Hooray! Programming, we did it. We've made the world's best user interface. Okay, so now let's add in our other buttons. Okay, we're going to keep the command here until we need to replace it, until we have something to replace it with, and then of course we will replace it. So we will just copy all of this, okay, and we will paste it 2 more times. So we're going to have a login button. We're going to have a create account button, and it might seem a bit much to like be really wordy with this, but it will be helpful when we're kind of looking at what things do, because there's a lot of repetition here, and so it's nice to have some very clear identifiers here. So I could be shortening this to button, and I might do that actually, so that it's taking up a little bit less space. Button, okay, just so that it's a little less, the lines are a little less long. So then we'll do our exit button and our exit button. Okay, lovely. So now we just need to go through and configure the different things. So let's start with the create account button. I'm going to start calling it a button. I'm sorry, button. Button. I can't help it. Okay, so we've got we're still giving it our window because that's its parent. Okay, and we need to change its text. So we are going to change this to create account. We're going to keep the width the same as the login button. And we don't have a command for it just yet, so we're just going to keep the command the same as well. Later on, we'll change this in order to give it some functionality. Our row, we're going to have this down on the next row. So we're going to have this at row 1. And now we're going to change our exit button. So we're going to come here, and we are going to change this to exit. Width is 10. Keep the command the same. That's all fine. And we're going to put this on row 2. Okay, so our login button's on row 0. Our create account button is on row 1, and our exit button is on row 2. And if we've done all of this right, we haven't had to change much. We've only really had to change the text in each one and the row in each one, and everything else has been fine. Oh, and obviously the variable names, they're important to change. But if you've done all this right, we should be able to press run, and hooray, we have 3 buttons. Look at that. That's fantastic. Okay, don't worry too much about the size of the window. Just at the moment, that's all okay. We can deal with this. Now, we need to start thinking about our interface as a series of different screens, right? And we're going to refer to each screen as a frame, okay? Because that's how Takinta refers to it. And so we're going to put these buttons in a frame, and that will be our main menu frame, yeah? And then we'll create a frame for the login screen. We'll create a frame for the create account screen. We'll create a frame for the account menu screen. We'll create a frame for the retrieve password screen. You can see where I'm going with this, right? There's a lot of screens to be created, and so we're going to kind of do this to our first screen here, our main menu. So I'm going to define a function here. I'm going to call this def main menu. I'm going to call this def create main menu. Create main menu. And we're going to just shunt all of these lines, these 6 lines here, login button, create account button, and exit button. We're going to pop them all in here. And we are going to say that our frame is equal to tk.frame. And I believe that's all fine. Let me just check my test file when I make a frame. And I need to give it the parent. Okay, cool. So in our interface, when we create our main menu, we're going to give it the parent, who this frame belongs to. Now, this frame is going to belong to our window, the kind of overall thing, the thing that everything else will be inside. Okay, so we're going to expect to be given a window. And when we create our frame, we're going to pass in that with now, that window. So here, rather than attaching these buttons to the window, we're going to attach them to the frame. So for our login button on this line here, for our create account button on this line here, and for our exit button on this line here, we are going to change window to frame. So I'm going to, lowercase frame, and frame. Okay, so these 3 now belong to this frame, and the frame belongs to the window, right? So everything inside the frame is also in the window. And what this means is we can return this frame. So once we've created it, we're going to say return frame. And then we can choose whether we're displaying it or not. Now we're going to be thoughtful with where our code goes. So I'm going to take this window equals tk.tk line, and I'm going to pop it down here at the bottom. This is where our kind of main program code is going to go. So here we are creating our main menu. And we need to store that. So we're going to store that in a data structure, in a dictionary. And maybe you remember dictionaries. We have used them in this program already. So I'm going to store my frames in a dictionary. So I'm going to say frames equals and an open and closed curly brackets there. And I'm going to press enter. Okay, and the dictionary is just like an array, right? So in an array, we just have a list of things. But instead of our things being in having an integer, chronological kind of integer index in order to identify them, so like 0, 1, 2, this we have a string that we can identify them, so we can give them a name. So I'm going to call this frame our login. Login. Colon, not an equals. And I'm going to say our login is not our login, our main menu. What am I talking about? I've got that button on my brain. We're going to say our main menu is create main menu. And you can see here that create main menu returns our frame. We've put this line in right at the end. And so now we can refer to this frame by saying frames main menu. And it will be this frame here that we've created. Now, this is an important concept, and it might be a little bit weird, but this is going to help us swap between the different frames in our application later on. Okay. Now, there's one really important thing that we have to do, and that is pass in window into our create main menu function. Okay, lovely. So now what we need to do is we need to create a function that allows us to swap between frames, right? We're going to create a swap frame function. So up the top here, we're going to define swap frames or swap change frame. That makes it swaps the wrong word. Change frame, and we're going to have a frame name. Oh my lord, so many rhymes. Okay, and in order to change frame, we're going to say that frames. Actually, we need the global variable frame. So we're going to say global frames. And because we said frames equals down here, just out in the wild of our program, it's a global variable. It just exists. Unlike variables in here, which this is a bad example because some of these persist, obviously. But the variables in a normal function kind of just get destroyed once the function's over. Whereas this will run for as long as the program is open. Okay, so we're going to say frames at position, whatever our frame name is. So it might be main menu, for instance. So if our frame name was main menu, then we'd mean this frame here. Okay. And then we're going to say dot. No, we're not. We're going to say, no, we are. We're going to say dot tk raise. Okay. And what that means is it will take our frame and it will bring it to the front of all the other frames. So you can imagine we've got them all stacked up one behind the other, and we're just choosing to see which one's at the front, okay? And when we tell our frame to raise, I think I've got this right. Let me just double check. I would hate for us to spend a lot of time. TK raise, yeah, absolutely. So this will bring this to the front. Okay, so once we've got a second screen, we can then tell it to go to that screen, and it will change what we're doing, and we'll see that in action in a second. So we've got a little structure here for us to change the frame. Now we need to make another frame. So let's make a frame for our actual login screen, right? So the user can actually log in. So we need to create a function. So we're going to stick to the same kind of convention. So we're going to say create login screen. And we're going to be given the window again. And this time, we want some labels and some entries. I'm doing my best to remember this. Okay, so let's have a look in this Geeks for Geeks article. I'm trying to avoid going back to this as much as possible. They do have a really nice example of this actually here. So we've got some labels and some entries here. So I'm just going to copy this first one, and we will pop it into here. Okay, so we can say label, and then here where it says master, we're actually going to replace that with window. So we're going to say label, open bracket, window, and we can't say just label, actually, we need to say tk.label. And we're saying text equals, and instead of first name, we want it to say username, right? So we want it to be, we want to tell the person what they're typing into this field. Now you can see they put the dot grid straight at the end here, so that we don't have to store this in a variable. We could call this username label, and then on the second line put username label dot grid, but it does allow you to do this in one line for the labels. And you can also see that we are specifying it's in row 0. Let's copy this and paste it down here. So we're saying tk.label, we're giving it the window as its parent, okay? We don't want the window as its parent though, do we? We want to create a frame that's containing all of this. And the frame's parent is going to be the window, but the frame's going to have children, and the children are going to be our labels and our text entry fields. So please bear with me. This will, just doing this will hopefully help you see kind of what's going on and how this works. So we'll say frame is equal to tk.frame, and we will give it the window. And then we'll say that this label belongs to this frame, and this label here belongs to this frame. And our text in this second label is going to say password. And this is going to be in row 1, not row 0, right? So we're going to have them on different rows. Okay, fantastic. So now we are going to use the tk.entry. And an entry is essentially just like a text box, something that you can type into. Now, what are the options for entry? Not a lot. We just give it, it's just a box, right? So we are going to, what are we going to do? We are going to give it the frame as its parent. And then we are going to, we do need to store this. So we're going to say username field is equal to tk entry. And then we're going to say username. I don't know why you can't do .grid on the same line as this one, but you can't. So we're going to say username field .grid. And we are going to say that the row for this is equal to 1. And actually, we should probably specify that the column is equal to 1. And we'll put the column as 0. No, we don't want the row as 1 here. We want the row as 0. What am I thinking? Row equals 0 here. Column equals 1. And then we should probably say up here, just to be specific, that the column is equal to 0 as well. And here, the column is equal to 0. Try thinking of this a bit like a spreadsheet, right? As we're formatting things. It's not the prettiest thing. It's not going to be the best looking thing, okay? But it will make this feel a lot more like an application. And there is loads you can do to make this look better. But we're gonna spend some time focusing on just the functionality of this. So we've got our labels here. We've got our entry field. So let's just copy this and we'll paste it underneath. And we're going to change this to our password field rather than our username field. So password field and password field. Okay, so this is another tk.entry. We give it the frame. Let's put some spaces between this just so that we can see this a bit more clearly. Okay, and we are now putting this in row 1, column 1. Okay, does that make sense? And what we'll do as well is we will give this a column span. I think we can just say column span equals, and we'll say 2. So it'll be 2 columns wide rather than 1. And we will put that into this password field as well. Okay, most importantly, we need to return our frame. And then what we're going to do is we are going to come down to here and we are going to add this frame to our frames dictionary, right? So this one is our login screen. So we're going to say login colon create login screen. We're going to give it the window. And that will create our screen. Now, if we just stop this and run it. Oh, I forgot a comma. We need to put commas between the things in our dictionary here. So commas at the end of the lines here in our dictionary, and we should be good to go. So if I press run here, okay, it is working. It's working. I guess really we should have our main menu to start with. So we should probably say change frame, and we should give it our main menu. So right at the start, we want it to be the main menu. So let's run that. Oh, what have I done? What have I done? Why isn't this working? Okay, it was working. Then I wrote this function and now it's not working. Create main menu, create login screen. Couldn't just work, could it? Could not just work. What have I done wrong? It's going to be something really silly, which is the most annoying thing. Got a window there. Got our frames here. What if I change this to login? Does that do anything? It's interesting that neither of these are appearing on the actual on the screen here. Oh, I think there's actually a thing I need to put in, actually. Let me just have a look at my test. This is all just gibberish. Ignore it all. Ah, okay. Yeah, I need to add these frames to the window. So I'm going to just copy this. Okay. So what we need to do, what I've failed to remember to do, is that, yeah, we've created these frames, but we actually need to put them into the window, right? And so we need to go through each frame. So we're going to say for key So each of these is a key, right? We refer to these as keys in our dictionary. So these strings here, they're our keys. They're what identify the piece of data on the right-hand side, the other side of the colon. So we can say main menu, and what we mean is this frame here that this function returns. So we're going to say for each key in frames, and it would help if I typed in, for key in frames, we want to do this. So we want to say frames key dot grid. Okay, so our frames and whatever key is, so it will start at main menu and then it will be login. And we're going to say, put yourself in the window, row 0, column 0, so right in the top left. And then we say sticky northeast, west, south news. Don't know why. No idea why. It didn't work without this though, so it's pretty important. So make sure you put it in. But I don't know why that is. I think that just means it like sticks to all the sides of the window. Yeah, couldn't tell you. The UI stuff is still a little bit alien to me, but we don't know if we don't try. Okay, and this is all about improving ourselves and getting better, and that's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it. So now, if I press run. Okay, great. So I told it to change frame to login, and we have the login screen there. Let's make this window a little bigger. Okay, lovely stuff. And you can see there that this text entry box is twice as wide as this password and username label because we told it to have a column span of 2. Yeah, so it's wider. Now, instead of login, let's have main menu and see if we get our main menu to appear. Okay, look at this. This is great. Fantastic. So we've got our buttons here. Now, even though I told these buttons up here to be in column 1, not column 0, there's they're just not, right? So I think we need to put something in column 0 just to like shunt them over. So we'll just make maybe like a dummy label or something, yeah? So we will just say tk.label, label, and we will say, how do we do this? We give it the frame. We give it some text, and I'm going to set the text equal to just an empty string, right? We don't actually want it to display anything. We're just going to say .grid, and we're going to say column equals 0. Okay, I'm not too fussed about what row it's in. I just want there to be a column there. So then they pushes those buttons over. So hopefully that will put that into the frame now, and that will push these buttons into the center, making it look just a little bit nicer. It's not going to change the world by all means, and it's done absolutely nothing, but there was an attempt. It has pushed them over ever so slightly. I'm not going to spend loads of time trying to fix this because we've got bigger fish to fry. But yeah, there's probably a more clever and more sensible way to do this. And so I will just kind of leave this here. There was an attempt, and maybe we can come back to this at some point. Now, what would be really nice is if when I press login, the program didn't just crash, but it actually took me to the login screen. So let's put that in now. So let's come up to our button, our login button. And here we can see the command is window.destroy. Now that's not what we want to do, is it? What we actually want to do is we want to change what screen we're seeing. We want to change the frame. And we've written a function for changing the frame. It is called change frame. So let's just move this back in a little bit. So here with our command, instead of saying window.destroy, we are going to say, now, we have to write this in a slightly weird way because we want to give it the frame name as well. And I'm just going to double check what that name is. We say equals, and then we just write as a, yeah, okay. So in our interface, we're going to say command equals lambda, like that, like a lamb, and then da at the end, lambda, colon, and then we're going to write our function, okay? Lambda is a very powerful thing in Python. I don't really understand it. Not going to explain it to you now, but feel free to go and research it. It can do some pretty weird and wonderful stuff, but yeah, it's beyond what we're going to be going through in this video. So we're going to say lambda, and then we're going to give the name of the function. So the function that we want is, of course, change frame. So we're going to say change frame. And we are going to, in the brackets there, we're going to give it a frame name. We want to go to the login page. Okay. Now this is where the magic happens, because now we should be able to run this. We should be able to click the login button and it takes us to the login page. How good is that? Oh, we're cooking with gas now. Okay, now I've just realized we've forgotten two really important elements of this login page. And that is, of course, some buttons to like submit to log in, right? So we could do with a login button. We could also do with a cancel button. If I didn't mean to click login, if I actually wanted to go back to the main menu, then I could do with a cancel button. So let's go over to our create login screen and we're going to add in two buttons. Now there's no point reinventing the wheel, so let's just grab a button from up here where we've already done one. Okay, and create main menu. Let's take a button from there and let's come down to create login screen and we will pop this in. Okay, now we only have to change a few things. We're still going to frame. Frame is different. It's a different frame compared to create menu, but it's still called frame, so we can leave that as it is. We're going to change the text to login. I'm going to have them as two words. Like, is it one word now? Login, login, login. I don't know. I will keep the command the same just for the time being until we actually know what we want to replace it with. And then we're going to put it in row 2 and column 1, right? So it's going to sit kind of here. You can see my mouse kind of waving around there. It's going to sit about here. And then we're going to put in another button for cancel. Oh, I don't want to call this create account button, though, do I? I want to call this login button. Login account button? No, login button. Okay, lovely. So we've got login button equals this button, login button.grid, and we're putting it into the frame there. And we're going to copy this, and we are going to come down here, and we are going to make a cancel button. So we're going to call this cancel, and we're going to rename this to cancel as well. Lovely stuff. And instead of being in column 1, this is going to be in column 2. And instead of being called login, it's going to be called cancel. Okay, now, what do we want to happen when we cancel? Well, all we want to do is we want to change frame, right? We want to go back from the login screen and we want to go to the main menu. So we can use exactly what we used up here, our lambda colon change frame. So I'm just going to copy this here and I'm going to pop it down here in our cancel button. But instead of going to the login menu, we're going to go to the main menu. So I'm just going to change what's in the string here to main menu. And this isn't happy because I've actually got rid of command equals, haven't I? Which is bad. Hopefully you managed to paste that in better than I did. So I'm going to say command equals lambda change frame. And if we run this now, we should see, if we press login, oh, it's already looking like an application. This is so cool. Love it. Okay, so we can see here that we've got a login button and a cancel button. Now these are maybe a little bit wide, so I might make these a little bit smaller. Maybe make them, I don't know, 7. I'm not really sure. It's 7 what? I'm not really sure, but 7. It's 7 of width wide. Okay, and that kind of works. That's a bit nicer. So I should be able to press login and it just destroys the window. Okay, it does nothing. So that's not really doing anything at the moment, but I should be able to press login here and then cancel, and it takes me back to the main menu. Okay, look at this, application design 101. I can click a thing and it does a thing. That's so exciting. Okay, so this is where we're going to be getting our values for our username and our password from our user. And the way that we can kind of track what the user is doing is a bit odd. And so we have to think carefully about what we're doing here. Now, once again, I should just have my test in another tab because that would be really helpful. We need to use a concept like this and this. So let's take that pk.stringvar. Okay, so where are we? Username field. So let's just come between the username and the password field here. So we are going to say that username is equal to tk.stringvar. Bothers me that, okay, yeah, string var. So capital S, capital V. Okay, and what that does is it says that username will be an actual special value that we want to exist throughout this program, right? And then in our username field, I've put this username in the wrong place. In our username field, when we make our entry, what we're going to do is, as well as telling it the frame, we're going to tell it that the text variable inside it, so whatever is typed into the username field here, will be assigned to the username variable. And let's just copy this username variable and actually move, or cut it even, and move it up here. So we're saying username is equal to tk.stringvar. And then we're saying whatever is typed inside here, whatever this variable text is that the username types in, we're going to update the value of username with that. Okay, you with me? So we're going to do the same with passwords. We're going to copy this and we're going to pop this down here and rename it to password. And then here in the password field, when we say tk.entry, we're going to put a comma here. We're going to say text variable equals password. Okay, so let's just test that this is working. So I'm going to say that the command for our login button, we are just going to print. Remember the console? Remember that thing that we used in the last episode? It's like that like black and white thing that we just print text out to. We'll use that again right now. So we will print out the username. We have to say username.get, I believe. And we will say password.get. And that will get whatever value is in those boxes. Okay, so now if we run this, why is that there? Okay, and I press login. Let me just have all my code here so you can kind of see it. Okay, so I should be able to type in a username now, like Bob, and a password such as password1, and I should be able to press login, and nothing happens because we didn't use Lambda. I'm an idiot. Okay, we have to use Lambda. Otherwise, can you see here? There's like a blank line in the console. That's because it instantly printed them out and they had no value when it printed them out. So we need to say Lambda colon, and that's why we need Lambda. Again, not really sure what it's doing, but we do need it. So that's that. So if I try this again, we press login, we go to username, type in Bobo, maybe this time, password1, and press login. Okay, great. The values are printed out down there in the console. Okay, we've printed them out, and so we know that we've actually got those variables, and we can use them now. Now, we've already written all the code for a user logging in. Right, it goes in, it searches for their hash, it hashes their username and their password, it checks for them, it does all of that. We don't need to worry about that. We just need to pass these values into that function, and then it will just work. And so we should probably make a login function, I think. So we're going to say def login. Okay. And this is going to ask for a username and a password. And I think I should probably put this at the top somewhere. So I'll put this at the top. Not really sure it'll make any difference. To be safe than sorry though. And what we will do here is, instead of printing, where are we printing? Down here in create login screen. So instead of printing the username password.get, we're going to say login. And we're going to give it the username, we're going to get that, and we're going to get the password. Okay. And then in our login function up here, this is where we're going to have all the code that tries to log in the user. And one of the last things that will happen will be change frame. And we will either change frame to, well, if it's successful, we'll change frame to the account menu, right? So we will change frame to the account menu. Now, we've not actually made the account menu yet, but hey ho, account menu. Kind of putting it in there preemptively. Now, how do we get people to log into our app? Well, if we go to files and we go to main, what happens? Well, what happens indeed? It's like a blast from the past, this. So program is running equals main menu, login. If they choose login, can you see all this code? And we just had to make a button. And it does the job of all this code. It's crazy. Okay. Then we return true. Okay. User logged in, UID equals authentication.authenticate user. So let's take this whole line, I think. I think that would be helpful. And then user logged in will tell us whether it was successful or not. Okay, so we can come down to our interface file. And in our login function, what we're going to do is we're going to say user logged in and their UID is equal to authentication.authenticate user. Now it's got an underline here because it's like, what the heck is authentication? We just haven't imported it. So let's import that. Let's import authentication. And this last version, and maybe the next version, if it spills over into that, is pretty much just going to be us ripping apart our main function and sticking it into this file here. So we're going to authenticate the user, and then we're going to say if user logged in, then we are going to change frame to account menu. And if they're not logged in, then what we're going to do, probably nothing, right? It's just gonna sit here and not work. I guess we could probably do with resetting the values and maybe giving a message to the user. So we could probably do with like a label at the bottom here that pops up and says invalid invalid credentials, right? But let's just make sure, let's kind of get this account menu and make sure this is all working first. So we're going to create another function, and it's going to be create account menu. This is definitely going to take more than one version. What was I thinking? Maybe another version. This UI is, you can see it's getting pretty mammoth already. So create account menu. We'll give it the window. And I can't remember our options for our account. What were they? Jump into main. What were our options? Generate, actually, let's just copy this array. Oh, hello, come back. Where are you? Sneaky. Okay, let's copy this and let's just paste it in here so we can look at what they are. So we've got generate password, retrieve password, store password, and log out. Okay, lovely. So we want 4 buttons. Yeah, so I'm going to copy one set of buttons here. And it's really important that we label these buttons because we will be coming in and we'll be like looking at their functionality and what they do. And so it's really important that we're clear about which button is which. So we will have our generate password button. Oh, it's just such a long name. Let's get rid of our files here. Okay. And generate password button.grid. And our text will be generate passwords. You can see that it is a lot of like repetitiveness. And there are maybe more sensible ways that we could go about and more streamlined ways. But for when we're kind of learning about how this UI gets put together, I think it's important that we do it the long way round so that you understand what each kind of piece of the puzzle is doing. Now we need to tell it what it belongs to, so we need to create a frame. So we're going to say frame is equal to tk.frame, and we're going to give it the window as its parent, and it will have this beautiful children, this lovely button children here, and we'll put this in row 0. And obviously I'm positioning things just kind of in a kind of fairly standard default layout. If you thought that things could go better elsewhere, take it away. Do what you want. You can be as creative and as imaginative as you like here. I'm going to give you the basics, and you just go for it, or don't. Just do what I do. It's completely up to you. Don't feel that anyone's going to judge you if you don't. If you keep it a simple UI, that's absolutely fine as well. At the end of the day, if I'm trying to store my passwords, I'm not going to be too worried about how the app looks. Well, to a certain extent. Obviously, if it looks terrible, I might question whether it's reliable. But you're not going to actually use this to store your passwords. This is an exercise. Do not use this to store your actual passwords. Even though it's safe, it's not amazingly safe. Maybe store like something you really don't care about. um, okay, so we've got our generate password button, we've got our retrieve password button, and I'll put that in row one even, sorry. And we don't need to change anything else. One thing I am conscious of though is that we've got width equals 10, width equals 10. I'm just going to put a variable at the top here called button size equals 10. And I'm just going to copy that and I'm going to replace 10 with button size. Okay, so we just have to change it there in one place and all of our buttons in this menu will change. It's unlikely that we're going to want them to be different sizes. So we'll do that. So that's retrieve password. Now we just need to do store password. So we'll do copy this again. And we just need to change this to store and change this row to 2. And lastly, we want log out. Also, I didn't rename this, so I've got 3 retrieve passwords. So this one is store password. I thought I was forgetting something. So store password button and store password button. And this one is going to be log out button. Button is getting more and more enjoyable to say the more I say it, and I do apologize. Log out. Okay, and this will be, that's row 1, 2, and this will be row 3. And instead of saying retrieve password here, we will say log out. Whew, okay, fantastic. So we have now, I can get rid of this options array now. I've got all of these, that's fine. So we've got our frame. We've told it what the button size is, so we can kind of change that at the change of 1 number rather than the change of 4 numbers, which is a bit nicer. All of these belong to this frame. They're all gridded into here with their own rows, but they're in the same column, so they're all down the middle. You could have this so that they were kind of in a 2x2 grid if you wanted to, or however you wanted to do it. Again, up to you. And the last thing we need to do, we need to really remember that we are returning this frame. We want to return it back out of this function to store it somewhere. Otherwise, it will be gone forever. Come back, Mr. Frame. Okay, so now we're going to add this to our dictionary. So what did we call it up here? Account menu. Obviously, it's the account menu. So we'll say account menu, and then we will call this. We need to call the create account menu function, right? So we're going to say create account menu. We're going to give it the window. We're going to put a comma at the end in preparation for our next line here. And now, technically, we should be able to log in as Bob and get to the account menu. Okay, so let's try and run this and let's see. So let's just kind of, I'll just bring this code back to here so you can see what I've done. In case I feel like I might be plowing through this a little bit fast, and I feel like also at the same time I'm going through it quite slowly. So it's trying to get the balance right. But let's run this. Okay, so we can choose from our main menu here our 3 different things. Let's log in. Let's pop in our username of Bob. And let's just try the wrong password to begin with. So let's just put Bob in here and press login. Okay, nothing happens. Wait, it said please enter your username. Ah, okay. Authenticate user. We haven't configured this to work with our username and password that were passed in from our UI. So we're going to pop in our username as arguments here and our password. This is really important. So here in our login function, in our interface.py, we've taken this line from our main function in main.py. User logged in UID is equal to authentication.authenticate user. And we need to add in as arguments the username and the password that we're going to pull out of these boxes from our user interface. Okay, we're passing them in here. And we down here somewhere, we are actually using this. Somewhere. I think I've collapsed the function, but we're using it somewhere. Okay, so we're passing that in. Now we need to go to our authentication file. Sorry, I said that in a really weird way then. We need to go to our authentication file. Okay, there. Okay, maybe. Okay, there we go. It's just nicer to have them open like this. Okay, so we go to our authentication file and we're going to go down to authenticate user. And we can see here that it's printing login. So just down here, we're printing that menu. Now, we don't actually want to do this. So we're going to set this up to accept a username and a password. And you might remember last time that we did a similar thing to this in another function where we set default value to none. Yeah? And none being the absence of any value. Not zero, not an empty string, but nothing. It is void. It is endless. It's a black hole. It's an endless space of eternity and time. And so we're going to say we're only going to go this route. We're only going to ask for this. We're only going to ask for this if our username and password are none, right? So if username and if username is equal to none and password, well, really both should be none or neither, but let's just do and password equals none. I guess we could say or. Yeah, and we're going to do that. Now, if they're not that, then we need to hash our username and our passwords ourselves. So we can see here we need to use the generate hash function here. So the get hashed credential is asking for an input. It's clearing the screen, and then it's generating a hash. So we're going to take this, and we're going to come down here, and we're going to say if that, then do this. Else, we're going to say username hash equals generate hash with our username, and we're going to say password hash equals generate hash with our password. Okay, so if we don't pass these in from the UI, then we're going to assume that we're running this through the console, and so we will use our kind of very basic console app, right? However, if these are being passed in from our app, from our GUI, our GUI, our graphical user interface, then we don't want to print out to the console. We want to ignore all of this, and we want to take what has been passed in, the values. So in this case, Bob and Bob, okay, and we want to hash them. And I guess really we should probably just. I get worried with Python. You never have to initialize variables, and it scares me. It's scary. Let's say password. So we're going to say username and password equals empty strings up here. No, we're not. That's terrible. We're going to say username hash equals an empty string, and password hash equals an empty string. Okay, fantastic. So valid user equals is valid user, username hash password. So that will check whether it's a valid user. We don't need to do anything there. It will return that. Otherwise, it will return false and false, and it will print this out to the console. Only though, else, and then we're just going to put this here as well. So I'm just going to copy this here, and I'm going to put that here. And so if username equals none and password equals none, then we're going to just do the helper.clear invalid username or password and pause. Otherwise, we're just going to ignore that. We don't need to print to the console if we're using the GUI. And so we will just return false and false. Okay, so let's jump back to our interface.py. And now it should just work. Maybe my favorite saying ever. It should just work. Okay, I've accidentally put a character where it shouldn't have gone. I'm sure you saw that, and we're screaming at the screen. Let's try this again. Lovely stuff. Let's press login. Username Bob Biob. And Bob, let's press login. Nothing. That's exactly what we want to happen. Nothing happened. Okay, cool. What if we put in the correct password? Password 1. It works! Fantastic. Unfortunately, the buttons are a little bit small to fit all of the words in here. So we're going to have to make these buttons a little larger. So let's jump back into interface.py. And we are going to come down to where we create our account menu. And instead of a 10 for our button size, let's do 15. 15 sizes. Okay, let's do this one more time because it's cool. Genuinely, this is like, wow. Like this is programming, right? Oh, Okay, and we're into the account. It would be nice to have maybe a title at the top. Maybe we could put a label there above them, saying something. But for the moment, that's absolutely fine. Now, log out. What that should do is take us back to the main menu screen, right? So we know how to do that already. We're already doing that somewhere. Where are we doing it? We're doing it here. Change frame, main menu. So let's take this and let's find our log out button and let's add that there. So is it this one? Log out. Yeah. Command equals window.destroy. Let's replace that with change frame main menu. So that will take us back to the main menu screen. So let's just test that's working. So press run, log in, username of Bob, password of password1, and I'll press log in. That takes me to my account and I can press log out and I'm logged back out. Okay. And now I can either create an account that just closes, that just destroys the app. Don't know why I clicked that. We can log in or we can cancel and we can press exit and we can exit the program. Look at this. We've got the basics of a UI in place. This is really cool. This is really exciting. So we've managed to create our account menu. We've created a login screen and we've created the main menu. We've also set up a way of changing between those different screens. And we started bringing in some of the logic that we've already written, okay, when we got our program working in the first place. And we started integrating that with the user interface. This is really cool. So in the next version, we will try to get as much of the rest of the functionality as we can into this graphical user interface so that our program actually works just like it does in the console. But I've taken an hour of your time today, and so I will leave it there for today, and I will catch up with you in the next version where hopefully we will finish this application. I hope I see you there. Thank you for watching. Thank you for taking the time to program along, and have a good period of time between now and when I see you next. Bye.